Hi, I'm Connie Paglianiti. I'm a speaker, an author, and an event manager. And today I'm going to be an online prosperity show. And I look forward to talking to you.
Now, if you're watching this right now, have you ever wondered what it's like to go from orchestrating events with Hollywood A-listers to orchestrating a comeback from a 6 million fraud conviction? Well, today's guest knows that script all too well. And a spoiler alert, this is not a Netflix series. This is actually a real life. Now, welcome to the Online Prosperity Show, the number one destination for exclusive insights into transformative journeys. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvenga, and today we're going to be diving deep into the life of Connie Paglianiti. I think I got that right, didn't I, Connie?
You did very well, Prosper. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And you're going to be meeting Connie a little later on. She's not just a speaker and author. She's actually a living testament to the power of second chances. Now, Connie, welcome once again to the show. And thank you so much for giving us audience into your journey and your book, Shadows, From Shadows into the Light.
Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate the time and the opportunity to share my story and hopefully help somebody out there.
Great stuff. Now, for those that are watching right now, Connie's story is not just about downfall and redemption. It's about the silent battles that a lot of us face, which are addiction, shame, and the quest for self-worth. Now, if you ever felt like maybe your mistakes are starting to define you, maybe this episode will actually change that notion and inspire a new perspective. So I encourage you to brave yourself for what's about to come, and also grab yourself your favorite beverage, settle in, and let's journey into the shadows, from the shadows into the light with Connie Paglianiti. Now, obviously, Connie, your journey started off with the glitz and glam and orchestrating events in Hollywood with the Hollywood stars. Tell us a little bit about what that looked like and, what your day-to-day sort of entailed.
Oh, look, I didn't start through the glitz and glamour first. I do come from humble beginnings. I come from a very strict Italian family. We migrated to this country in 69. My parents came to Australia for a better life for their kids. So my beginnings were very, very humble. But I always wanted to get into acting ever since we got the first TV set in our household in Italy. And I saw the beauty because I came from a little town of about 1,500 people. So I never went out of the town. I never saw the beach. I never saw the sea. I never saw the big city. So when we got this TV set in black and white and I saw those beautiful old style musicals, that's what I wanted to be. Unfortunately, my parents being very strict Italians, that wasn't the career they wanted for their daughter. They wanted their daughter to basically get married, have children, and get on with life. So when we came to Australia, I went to school not knowing English, so I had to learn the second language. And I started working in an office. But I did a lot of charity work through my growing up years. So through my charity work, I had to organise events. By organising events, I did two things. One, I gave back to the community, but two, I learned a craft which I learned to love. I also went to university to finish to do an accounting degree, which I almost got to the end, but then I started my own business in 91 in bookkeeping services, financial services. But I was working 24/7 because in those days you didn't outsource your bookkeeping. So I was very much ahead of the game. And my business was going really, really, really well. I actually moved my office out of my home, working 24/7, into Lygon Street in Carlton, which is, if people know, Little Italy of Melbourne. Whilst I was there, I was asked to go onto their committee. And basically I said, well, I'm happy to come on your committee, but I'm not going to be just a committee member, because I know what it's like if you're a committee member, and I'm a hard worker. I put all my effort into it. I said, I need to be the president. So I became president of the Carlton Business Association. And that entailed that I did all their PR, their marketing, their events, and so on. After 7 years and having a young child at the age of 45, because my first child and only child, I had him at 45. I got married at 42. So I gave it up and started my own event management company, still keeping the financial business going because that was paying all the bills. And my event company was starting to get really well known. I did events in Lygon Street, which we had about 87,000 people in one day, trying to break the longest pizza record. So everybody wanted to work with me, which was great. It opened a lot of doors. It gave me a different outlook on life and what it was like. And then I met this person that became my business partner. And I thought our vision and our values were the same. We wanted to bring the modern Italy into Australia, not what was there 50 years ago, because Italy over the decades has changed. It's not when you go back there, it's not what we remember it to be. So we want to bring the new food, the new fashion, the new music, etc. So I started working with him. Unbeknownst to me, he ended up being one of the biggest con men around. By the time I realised what was happening, he left me in $1 million debt. And I didn't know what to do. I was lost. I did something that I would not even normally consider doing. I stole money from this dear client of mine of over 20 years to pay those debts. That got me into a very depressed state, which led me into gambling addiction, which then became high roller, a big high roller. So I kept stealing money to pay for the addiction. But at the same time, I needed to revamp my event management company from the dust. So I rebranded it in 2015 by asking Sophia Loren to basically relaunch my company. So I had Sophia Loren first. Then I tried getting Alec Baldwin. That was another saga. That was 4 weeks before the event. He cancelled the event. I still don't know to this day what the reason was. So then I got Susan Sarandon, Goldie Hawn and Jane Seymour out to Australia as my guests. And so we did charity galas, we did an evening with all that. So I walked the red carpet with these people. I spent time with these people. I spent a week with Sophia. I spent a month with Jane Seymour. So it was really great. But that was on the surface. On the surface, I was this wonderful, successful, warm, loving, friendly Connie. But in the background, it was Connie with all these secrets. Connie that was broken. Connie that was really depressed. A few times I even thought of doing the unthinkable. And the only thing that kept me going and sane was the thought that I would leave my young boy without a mother. So I just kept gambling because the more I gambled, the more I liked it. It was a place where I could actually let my guard down. And people who've got addictions out there will understand what that means. If you've never had an addiction, it's very hard to understand. The biggest addiction I had prior to that was chocolate. I was a chocoholic. That was the biggest addiction. I never touched drugs. I never smoked. I never overdrank. I was mainly a social drinker. So this addiction just took hold of me. And at the time, I didn't even realize I had an addiction. I thought, yep, I'd win money and I'd pay the client back. How the hell I was going to do that, I have no idea, because once you take money, how are you going to put it back, regardless whether you got it or not? So I gambled and gambled and gambled and took more money. It ended up being, by the time I got caught in September 2018, just a little bit over $6 million. I'm not proud of what I did. I'm actually ashamed of what I did. I didn't tell a soul to start with, except one personal friend who used to be a lawyer. So I knew the day that I got caught because the money didn't get transferred into my bank account. So I knew that the day had come. So I called and I said, look, I haven't told anybody, but this is what's happened. So she guided me what to do. But it wasn't until a week later, it was a Monday night, it was about 8 o'clock at night. I was in my room and there was a huge knock on the door. My 15-year-old son went and answered the door. And I heard my name being mentioned. I knew then that they had come for me, and I thought it was actually the police. My son called me to the door, and he was a man with this big, thick envelope. He asked to confirm that I was Connie Payeniti, and I said yes. And all I got was, you've been served. I just snatched the envelope away and ran to my room. My husband and my son followed me into my room, and they sat down on the bed and they said, what have you been served with? I still tried to deny it. I still said, no, nothing, don't worry, nothing happened. It's all good, it's all good. No, what have you been served with? They kept insisting. Eventually, I just broke down. I just broke down and told them, well, if you had seen the look on their faces, I wanted to die. They were just absolutely shocked and horrified. And I remember my 15-year-old son's words were, Mum, don't do anything stupid. I need my mother. And that, if I was broken before, well, that basically ripped me apart. My husband kept blaming himself. How could I not see this? How could I not see this? And as I said to him, my acting skills came into play. I said, you could only see what I wanted you to see. You're not to blame. Don't blame yourself. But it's easier said than done, I suppose. But one thing that night, I don't know what happened, but something lifted off me. I felt lighter. I felt like this big burden that was holding me down and dragging me down, now that the secret was out. I felt better. I knew there would be consequences. I didn't know how deep. And I knew I had to face those. But at the same time, I felt relieved. I felt relieved because my secret was out with my loved ones. Because during those years, I found it very difficult to sleep, relax. I was always hyper. I couldn't be in the house. I needed to be in front of those pokies. And because I was doing events, my husband thought I was at events, socialising, networking. Sometimes he used to come to those events with me, so I'd come home with him. But at other times he couldn't because he either had to look after our son, or he found it quite boring because when we went to events, I actually went to events to network. So I'd leave him on his own. So at times he didn't come because he didn't want to be left on his own. So yeah, that's what happened. So all the glitz and glamour, gone. All the red carpet, gone. Then I had 15 months of legal battles. I was told by my barrister at the time that I'd be looking at minimum, on a good day, 6 years. But it could be as high as 10. And I thought to myself, I'm going to die in jail. I don't know how I was going to cope. Look, I'd always been curious. You know, you watch those police shows and those cop shows and prison shows, and you think, are they really like that? And so I was curious about prison, but I didn't want to go to prison. But I ended up going to prison. I really found out what it was like. I was so lucky that the day before my court case was to go to court, my barrister rang me and she said, Connie, somebody must be looking after you. You could not have asked for a better judge. I didn't know one judge from another, so that meant nothing to me. I had heard about other judges where they were really harsh on women. They were harsh on gamblers. So many different things. So when she told me this, I thought, okay, well, let's see what happens. So we went to court, and in all this time, I'd gone to counselling as well, so through a psychologist. So he did a report for the court. But when we went to court, the judge wasn't satisfied that everything had been answered, so she couldn't actually sentence me. So she asked the psychologist to go further and ask 7 more questions. So that means I didn't go to jail yet. So I had to go to more sessions with the psychologist and answer these 7 questions. When we went back with those 7 questions answered, I knew that my time was up. I knew I wouldn't be able to be free again. I hadn't told my mum yet. I hadn't told my siblings yet. I had told a few friends, or I thought they were friends. Some of them deserted me. Some of them called me a criminal. But my long-standing friends who have been around for a long time, who knew what I was really like, what I was like, they stood by me and they're still there for me today. The ones that left me were people that only hung around me because of my events, because of my red carpets, because they could get their faces in the newspapers. They left me. They weren't friends. I was surprised at a couple of them because I was there for them all hours of the night when they had issues. I stuck by them. But when I was in need, they deserted me, started spreading rumours, started calling me a criminal, even said to one of my friends, why are you still talking to that criminal? So that's what's happened there. And so anyway, I had to tell my mum that I think that was even harder than telling my husband and my son. Because even though I had a very tough upbringing, I know mum and dad were really proud of me of what I'd had achieved. And now all of a sudden, because I was the goody two-shoes in the family, I never did anything wrong. And then all of a sudden going from that to this, it was a big shock. So I orchestrated with one of my sisters that would take mum out for lunch and then tell her with my sister there. And then I spend the rest of the day with my mum to make sure she was okay. And then my sister would take her away for the next 3-4 days to their holiday house just to make sure she was okay. My mum was heartbroken. All she kept asking is, what do you mean? Why? You never stole a pen. You never stole a loaf of bread. What made you do this? It was so hard to explain it to her. It was very hard for her to understand. Anyway, although she still couldn't believe it, she still couldn't understand it, she stood by me to the day she died last year. I told my other siblings through a text message the night before I went to jail. When we went to the second court case, the judge still couldn't decide what sentence to give me, because she said, how can this woman, 61-year-old woman who's never done anything wrong her life, do this? She said, I really need to go through all the notes, all the recordings, and I'll have to make a decision in a couple of weeks' time. So I was taken to the high security jail in Deer Park. I was there for 5 weeks. And it was the worst time of my life. I get claustrophobic too. That doesn't help. It was dirty. It was filthy. It was disgusting. You're locked away in a cell with a toilet, a bunk bed, and a shower. And the officers can actually see when you shower, when you go to the toilet. Yeah. And they gave you the food through the little hole. And you were always on watch, because they were always on watch just in case I did something silly to myself, which I said I wouldn't, but they don't believe it. After a couple of weeks there in that cell, they actually did send me to an open unit with other women. And that was good, because at least then I could eat, because in the cell I wouldn't eat the food. I did not trust prison food cooked by other prisoners. So I basically lived on snacks, water, Tim Tams, and just fresh fruit if I could grab some. Once I went into an open unit, then I started cooking for myself. And after 3 weeks there, they sent me to the low security prison in Malden, where I was, again, had to clean the cell. Because I don't know how people can live in that pigsty, but they do. You're supposed to clean it as you leave, but you don't. They don't. So you need to scrub it yourself. And I remember getting there the day before Christmas. So all the food had gone. And all we got given, the people that got there that day, was just some, those barbecue sausages, some pasta, etc. And we went to the units, and this woman said, I'm doing the Christmas cooking. Nobody else does it. I'm doing it. I thought, okay, fine. I looked around, and again, it was just absolutely disgusting. It was filthy. I couldn't eat Christmas lunch. I didn't eat Christmas lunch because I'm a clean freak, and especially when it comes to cooking, it goes into your body. That's even worse. So after a couple of days there, I cleaned the place upside down. That upset the woman. So then I get an officer come to me and say, Connie, you got to lower your standards. You're in prison. You got to lower your standards. So rather than getting people to lift their standards, they want people to lower their standards. There's no rehabilitation in there whatsoever. They actually like you if you're on drugs, because it means you sleep most of the time. You don't cause any hassles. I got bullied there by 6 women and quite a few officers. The reason I got bullied by the prisoners is because I found out much later they stole a lot less than me but got more than me. And the officers had this issue with white collar crime. They thought we were just self-entitled. So they had a huge issue with that. I was also outspoken because I became the prisoners liaison committee member. So I represented them to the management team. So they were bringing issues up to me. So I kept taking them up. And all I got was, but that issue was dealt with last year or 2 years ago. And I said, well, it couldn't have been dealt with if it's still coming up now by new prisoners. So they didn't like me and my directness. I was there for about 12 months and eventually it was done in such a way that I still believe it was the officers, the operations manager who orchestrated it all, because 2 women went around saying that I was a police informer. And in prison, you do not want to have that reputation.
You're a snitch, yeah? You don't want to be
Yep.
a snitch.
I don't know what I was going to snitch on, but anyway, so they locked me away for, again, overnight in this horrible cold cell. I was told that they would investigate the issue. But by next morning, they carted me back to the high security prison. No ifs, no buts. And on the way back, the officer that drove me there, he looks at me and he goes, Connie, I won't use the word he used, but you've been effed over. I said, really? He goes, yes. He said, look, because they were new officers. He said, when we first started, we were told that you were a bully. And I said, really? Do you think I'm a bully? He looks at me and he goes, no. He goes, you were the most polite prisoner in there. We didn't find you to be a bully. But the new officers were warned that I was a bully. And I never bullied anybody. It's not a nice feeling to be bullied. So why would you bully somebody else? Always helped other women. So then I was locked away for another 16 nights in this horrible, horrible old part where basically it shouldn't even existed. It was windy, it was cold, it was dirty. And you were locked away in there for 24/7 for 16 nights. No reason. I spent Christmas Day in that cell. Not even a Merry Christmas from the officers. If you had to use the phone, you had to buzz them. And you were lucky if you got your phone call within 2-3 hours. One day I didn't even get it because they forget about you. But when they take you to the phone call, there's a phone booth. And they lock you in there. When they lock you in there and you have your 12-minute phone call, that's all you get, 12 minutes to talk to a family member. And you've got to pay for it out of your own money. You've got to wait for them to come and take you out. And because of me being claustrophobic, I did warn them. And most of the time they were pretty good. They got me straight out. But there was one day when I don't know what they were doing, but they took about 20 minutes to come and get me. So by the time they came, I was on the floor panicking because I don't like being caged. So eventually they got me out. Having medication, if you got headaches, you had colds, very hard to get medical to assist. The healthcare in there was pathetic. I don't know what they were doing, but to get a medical appointment, you had to wait weeks. I remember I was I don't know what the disease was called. It was like vertigo. And I had to sleep on the couch. I couldn't even get on my bed in the unit. And you had to go and get your medicine from your unit all the way up to the other end. But because I couldn't get up, the doctor said the medication will come to you. So it did for a day or two. And then on the second day or the third morning, I get this dragon of an officer and this nurse come in there. You got to get off the couch. You have to go and get your medication. I couldn't even walk. And I said, but the doctor, no, you got to get off and go and get it. So I had two of my cellmates that were taking me downstairs, because I was upstairs, towards the pharmacy. And I got stopped and they said, where are you going? And I said, I got told that I had to. No, you go back upstairs. You are allowed to get your medication in your room. So you had conflict. Oh, it was just horrible. I think it reminded me of Prisoner, where you got, well, who was it? Vinegar Tits? Do you remember her? Yeah, there were a few like that. But yeah, look, most of the women in there were quite nice. They all got issues. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in there. But there were some women, they shouldn't have been there. They should have been somewhere getting help. They shouldn't have been locked away. And look, like I said in there too, there should be some people that should never be let out. Ever. But after spending 2.5 years there, I thought I did a bit of education. Wasn't much happening because it was during COVID, so I couldn't see my family. We got 2 Zoom calls per week, half an hour. And if you were lucky that you weren't locked up, you were allowed to have 12-minute phone calls if you got into line, because the phone calls were limited. The phone were limited. So people were queuing up. So that's why they cut you off for 12 minutes. So other people could get a chance of ringing their families. But I thought my worst time was in jail for 2.5 years. So the day that I got released, I thought, I'm out. I'm going to keep going with my life. But once coming out, I didn't have those physical bars, but I had these invisible bars around me. I couldn't go outside the house. It took me over a week to even contact a few friends to say, I'm out, because they were emailing my husband saying, is Connie out? So he had to say, look, she needs time alone. The only people I saw were my immediate family. I couldn't go shopping. I just wanted to be stuck in the 4 walls again. And it was the shame, it was the embarrassment, but it was also the stigma associated with gambling. For some reason, people feel sorry for people who are drug addicts or alcoholics. But if they've got a gambling addiction, that seems to fly out of the window. They seem to think we're in control. We're not in control. Those bloody machines are in control of us. And until you go through that, you don't understand it. You've got no understanding. I mean, before I did that, I had no understanding. But what that taught me is empathy. I can actually feel their pain. But a lot of people don't admit they've got gambling addiction because of the stigma. If you knew how many suicides happen because of it, you'd be shocked. But they are hidden under the carpet. Because the gambling lobby doesn't want you to know. The government doesn't want you to know. There's a lobby trying to get ads, gambling ads off TV, sporting arenas. But do you think the government's listening? No. Because the gambling lobby is so strong. The government make huge amounts of money. Last year, Australians lost in excess of $33 billion in gambling. Just think about it. $33 billion in gambling. Yeah. The government got a third of that. But it's costing them a lot more by having gambling in the community. It's destroying communities. It's destroying families. It's destroying individuals. And that's what, after 2.5 years being locked away in my own home, last year, at the age of 66, I decided, because my mum, like I said, she went into hospital on the day of my birthday, never came out, because in October the year before, 2023, she got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. So she only lived 3 months, which in one way it's good because she didn't suffer for too long, but it didn't give us enough time to adjust. So I went back to uni because I knew then, I thought, no, I can't stay in my four walls. My mum is gone. What am I going to do? So I went back to uni at the age of 66. And I just graduated back in March this year. Thank you. And I met this amazing woman. I don't even know how I met her. Her name is Kaylee Chu. She runs public speaking workshops and courses. And I remember when I first joined her last year in May, I couldn't even talk. Every time it was my time to talk about my story, I just broke down. And a year later, I'm up on stages. I'm doing interviews like yours. I'll be on Channel 31 soon with somebody else. I've done Marie Claire interview back in December. I've written my own book. So she's given me the courage, and she's given me a beautiful community, a beautiful tribe where they're not judging me like the rest of the community. And that's what I want to get out there. I want the community to be a bit more understanding towards people with addictions. I want people to be understanding towards people that have been incarcerated and come out. They've made a mistake. They've paid the price. Give them a second chance. Do you know how many resumes I sent out for jobs that I was perfect for? But because in my covering letter I was up front, I didn't want them to wait for the police check. I didn't want to waste their time. I either never heard from them or I got rejected. It got to the stage where I even applied to hand out pamphlets at the state election with the state government. It wasn't the job that I dreamed of, but it was going to be something for me financially and getting me out there to meet people. So I got the job. I got the training manual. And after a couple of days of getting the training manual, they rang me because you have to tick a box that you got a criminal record. They rang me to find out what my criminal record was. So I told them. Very apologetic, but they retracted the job. I burst out and I said, what the hell do you think I'm going to do? I'm going to steal pamphlets. That's all I'm doing, is handing out pamphlets. For fruit's sake, what am I going to do with those pamphlets? She said, I'm so sorry, it's policy. And that really broke me, because I thought, if the government doesn't give you a chance to get on with life, how do you expect a private enterprise to do that? So that's why I released my book. It took me a while because there's a lot of stuff in there about my background, which I was a bit funny about, especially about my dad being violent. But I'm glad I got it out there. I don't want people to judge people. But I've also written 2 other books which are in the process of being formatted and hopefully printed soon. And one is called Chainless and Fearless, the 4 E's to Transformation, which is about businesses, corporates, governments, giving people who've made a mistake, who've gone to jail, who've had addictions, give them a second chance through the 4 E's: employment, education, empowerment, environment. Because when they release prisoners from prison, some of them don't have a place to go to. They'll put them in a hotel for 2-3 nights, and then what? Or if they can get a place for them, they normally put them in the same drug-infested homes they came out of. And that is so wrong. Whereas if you give these people a chance in prison, rehabilitate them, educate them properly, not that Mickey Mouse courses you give in there. Get an employer to sponsor a prisoner to study in there, and when they come out, they've got a place to go to work with. Because people that have made mistakes, and this is globally known, because you're giving them a second chance, they become your most loyal, hardworking employees. They stick by you because you've given them that second chance. And the other book that I've written that I just finished a couple of weeks ago is Red Flags in Plain Sight. Because like I said, when I ran my financial business, I used to go into businesses looking for the red flags, catching people who did the wrong thing, and then I ended up being the red flag. So I've got the lived experience on both sides. And my ambition is to get onto the TEDx stage, speak it to the world, because it's not just the people that are reaching out to me on LinkedIn from all around the world, America, England, Africa, you name it. So this is a global. And I'll call gambling the silent killer. Because if somebody's on drug, you can see it through their mannerisms, their eyes, the way they speak. An alcoholic, you can smell it, you can still see it. But a gambler, you can't tell. You could be a gambler, but I can't tell. And you won't admit it because the shame and the stigma is too much. So that's my story. So my story is, it doesn't matter what you've gone through, you can pick yourself up, but you have to own it.
Thank you so much. Now, I really appreciate you taking us through all of that. And obviously there's quite a lot to unpack, but maybe we could just move with the questions to the parts that you haven't actually elaborated. Now, when you then came out and you wrote the book, okay, you did say it was a little bit difficult. It was actually much more harder being out than it was being in prison. What was the most challenging part of actually writing such a raw and honest memoir? Because this is where you were really letting it all out, everything that happened in the past and everything else that happened in between, and the actual, escapade that then ensued.
Look, writing the initial chapters, my life in Italy, coming to Australia in my 20s and 30s, I didn't find that as difficult because in my late 20s, I actually forgave my father. You never forget, but I understood him. So that wasn't as hard as I thought. When I found it really difficult to write, and it took me quite a while, and then, of course, I broke my wrist, which didn't help. It was from the time when I met that con man and started stealing and gambling. That was the hardest because I still hadn't come to terms with it. Writing the book, finishing the book and getting it out there, it's been very cathartic for me. I actually own my story now. I own my mistake. Do I regret that mistake? 100%. I wish I could go back in time, but I can't. It is what it is. So do I stay silent? Or do I pick myself up and move forward and shout it out to the world that this can happen to anyone? I would have never thought it would have happened to me. I don't think anybody that knew me thought that it would happen to me, but it did.
Just touching up on that a little bit, because many people believe that addiction only affects certain demographics, certain types of people in society. And obviously your story now is challenging that misconception. Now, when you go on and answer this question, I also want you to touch up on when your husband said, "How could I not have seen this?" how can the people around at least have some sort of indication or inclination? Because like you said, I could be a gambler, nobody would know or even tell what's going on. So maybe it might be the people that are around us. Like you mentioned, the environment is quite a substantial part that needs to be offered and proffered.
Look, there are things you can look out for. If you never have money, if you keep borrowing money. See, my husband found it very difficult to see that because I didn't borrow money. I didn't steal money from my families or my friends. It was just this one particular person who trusted me. So it was very hard for him to find that. But our personalities change. So if you really look at it closely, we become either more outgoing to try to hide it, which was my case, or we go inward. But there's little things you can notice. And if it's somebody who doesn't have the event side, you can actually tell they're always out or they're always snappy because they're frustrated within themselves. I was very short. I mean, if people really looked at it, I wasn't short with people outside, but I was short with my husband. But he thought it was just because I was tired. But there are things you can see. They might be small, but they are there.
Now, you are running, obviously, you've got a movement now, the Breaking Chains movement, and it's actually gaining momentum. Could you maybe share with us what is the core message that you hope to convey with this initiative that you're putting out there?
The Breaking Chains movement is exactly what I said, give people second chances. It doesn't matter what they've done. If they've made one mistake or two, help them get over it. Help them move forward. Give them a job. Look, I'm not saying if I'm a drug addict, I wouldn't expect the pharmacy to give me a job there because that's putting temptation in my way. If I am a gambler, like I haven't been to a venue for 7 years. I haven't gambled for 7 years. The night that I got caught and I knew, that's when I stopped gambling. And I'm not the type of person that makes the same mistake twice. I do learn from my one mistake. Does it mean I don't make other mistakes? Of course I do. I'm human. But I want people to look beyond the crime, beyond the action that person did. Don't rely on that criminal record number. Find out what the crime was if you need to, if you don't feel like you can trust them. For example, if you've got somebody who committed fraud, you wouldn't put them in a bank. It's easy today to... One of the things I've got to make sure I tell people is I wasn't charged for fraud. And I only found out when I got my papers from the parole board. Mine was theft. I don't know what the difference is, but fraud is one thing, theft is another, apparently. But how they can call mine theft instead of fraud, I have no idea. But my papers say it's theft. But regardless whether it's fraud or theft, I stole money. So, of course, you put checks in place. So I don't have access to money on my own. In the old days, it used to be harder to steal money because you did checks and balances at the end of each day. You had to balance. So you found out straight away. Now with this all the electronic EFT and transfers, etc., it's much easier. You can hide it. You can do false invoices. And that's how people do it. I didn't do that. You look stunned. You look shocked. You got a question?
Oh no, I'm listening. I'm just really absorbing it and things of that nature. Now, also just so we can give closure to this, was the conman ever brought to justice? The one that brought you into all of this, and are they
Oh,
still?
he was one of many, unfortunately. Like my husband said, I think at the time I had this L for loser or S for sucker on my forehead because it was one after the other. He was the initial one. No, and it's really funny because I keep in touch with his ex-mother-in-law because I didn't even know he was married at the time. He basically lost everything for them. They lost their business. They almost lost their home. His father-in-law had a heart attack. The mother-in-law got cancer because of all the stress. The daughter was an absolute mess. And she actually told me not long ago, what was it, about a month ago, they finally paid the last debt that he left them in over 8 years ago. Whenever it was, it must have been before I did because I don't even know when he was married. 2010, 2009. So it was a long time ago. They just finally paid their debts off. I wasn't the only one. I'm not the only one. He's got businesses opening up, closing down. Yeah, I don't know why he doesn't get caught. But like my lawyer said when I went to him, you can take him to court, Connie. You'll win, but you'll end up losing because he doesn't have any money. He goes from one rich girl to another.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, you've been there, you've done that, you've done your time. Looking ahead, what are your aspirations for the next chapter of your life and work?
I want to go into corporates. I want to do workshops. I want to go and speak to the public about the 4Es and how we can implement those. Start with Victoria, take Australia wide, and then hopefully worldwide. There are some businesses worldwide that are doing it, and it's working really, really well. And I mainly look on the employment side. I actually wanted to look at the 4Es. Okay, there's a company in America that goes into prisons and they teach prisoners to code. And when they come out, 85% of those prisoners get a job in coding, which is amazing. And that's what it's got to happen. Because there's millions and millions of ex-prisoners that have come out. Prisoners don't like that term, by the way. So we need to come up with a different one. They need to get on with their life. And it's better for the community. Think of the money the governments would save by not having these prisoners locked up. By these people contributing to the community, paying taxes instead of costing the taxpayer. The health problems that occur in prisons. And I think society would be a better place. And we probably wouldn't have half the crime we've got if that happened.
Absolutely.
But also stop those gambling ads. I mean, how many kids do you hear saying they're going to a footy show and they're talking about the odds at a young age? That's scary.
That's how it starts, right? Like it's just
Yes.
innocent bet over here, and before you know, I think when I first got to Australia, there was this whole footy tipping, and it happens at a family level, where it's okay to actually put money towards something. Melbourne Cup is also one of those places where
But that were done for fun. They were done for fun. That's not where the gambling happens. Because the Melbourne Cup happens once a year. I used to go to the Melbourne Cup and I never gambled. I went more for the socialising and the networking. But I always believed that people, to get an addiction, it doesn't matter which addiction, there's always an underlying issue behind it. They don't go into drugs or alcohol or gambling just for the sake of it. There's an issue.
And if somebody wants to get a copy of your book, where can they go?
They can scan the thing at the back or my website, conniepaglianiti.com. Maybe if you can put it, because it's a big, long and hard to whatever do. I've got the book launch, the physical book launch happening on the 17th of August in Brunswick East. So if people want to attend that, they can go to, that's my landing page, which is speaking.conniepaglianiti.com/book launch. And they can purchase a ticket there. There's 2 different levels, and they can get a book there as well. If they buy from my website, I'll actually write a little message myself. If I buy it from Amazon, then it comes from Amazon, so I don't get to see the book or who buys it.
Absolutely. No, Connie, I can't thank you enough for the time that we spent on the call today. I mean, your life story and your experience really leave a blueprint for those that are either going through what you went through or, looking at their loved ones that are going through what you went through. And I viscerally believe your journey just reminds us that the past doesn't define us. It's just how we then rise up that actually truly matters. So thank you so much for taking the time with me today.
Thank you for giving me the time. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And I hope if there's somebody out there who needs help, reach out and ask, because I didn't. I was stupid at the time. I couldn't think straight. So don't get yourself in a pickle. Call them. Gamblers Help is amazing. And that's free.
Absolutely.
But I'm still doing counselling.
Now, if you're watching this and her story resonated with you, please don't keep it to yourself. Maybe share this episode with somebody who might find solace or inspiration in her words. Or if you know a friend or colleague or somebody a loved one who was going through, what Connie might have gone through, maybe just really let them know that help is available. And we will put all the details of where to go and also how you can grab a copy of the book From the Shadows into the Light and help you break free from stigma and scandal. And I encourage you to stay tuned to our next episode, where we're going to be exploring ideas to actually cultivate a happier existence. And remember to subscribe for more insightful content. And if you haven't yet already, please buy the book from Connie's website. Like she said, she would actually sign it for you then, Into the Light. And then just really dive deep into her transformative journey. Until next time, keep thriving for prosperity in all its forms. Bye.
Thank you.